Bounty versus the old family dish towel. Drying with a fresh sheet of Bounty leaves your hands cleaner than a used dish towel that can carry and redistribute food residue. So ditch the dish towel for better hand hygiene. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield, never not working.
Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music. The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Bryan, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Time to call a credit report.
All right, welcome to another edition of the BCSN SportsWrap. Brian Fulford here, momentarily broadcasting solo as I wait on my good partner and my showmate, AD Drew, who'll be joining us a little bit later in this show. We've got an interesting show for you as we sort of recap the past week of HBCU sports, and hopefully we'll get into a little bit of our second basketball top 5 rankings, and a little interview coming up later in the show. We'll get a chance to talk with Langston Lady Lions basketball player Asheika Alexander at the top of the second half. She's had a very interesting journey through her college, somewhat professional, and then back to college. So we'll get a chance to kind of find out how all of that went for her. Very unusual path. You know, you don't hear very many athletes that get a chance to move forward like she did, but and then end up coming back. So we'll kind of find out how all of that worked in the process of that. And she's actually got those Langston Lady Lions off to a great start this year. Want to remind you, I don't see my usual graphics, so I'm assuming that on our layers there that you see right above you, that you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MyBCSN1. That's the number 1. And then we want to encourage you to go ahead and download that Jericho Broadcast Network's app. There it is. MyJBN and MyBCSN1. MyJBN and MyBCSN on your Google and Apple Play Store is where you can find the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Want to encourage you to go ahead and download that. And so, yeah, okay. So, yeah, pretty much this first segment is going to be all solo me as we kind of update, just getting a little update from my guy Drew as, you know, we try to do this thing live. And, of course, we're both living busy lives, you know, and so sometimes little hiccups happen during the course of these things, and it just kind of puts together. So, interesting weekend in college basketball is most now with the MEAC playing their first games this weekend. You had another weekend of SWAC basketball action. And, you know, obviously one of the things that I've kind of noticed in general is that I'm seeing that a lot of schools and a lot of places are starting to go back to no fans in attendance, which I'm personally disappointed to see. I'll be flat out and honest with you. I was watching a little bit of Xavier versus Houston Tillotson earlier this week. Good friend Alex Hines was online watching that on YouTube. And I think this was on Thursday. I think this game was on. And, you know, it was disappointing to see. It was either Wednesday or Thursday this past week. Disappointing to see that Xavier, who's hosting this game, a big conference matchup in the Red River Athletic Conference, and there's no fans in attendance. Now, you know, my first interaction with Xavier was with a limited crowd, and just that limited crowd was powerful, very enthused, very energetic. They've got a great home base there for the men and women's basketball program, and I'm not gonna lie, in you know, coming out of the 2020 year, not seeing fans, you know, seeing a little bit of those fans in attendance early on this year was a good thing to see, I thought. And so now, of course, with the recent spread of Delta, I don't know, is it Delta, Omicron, Zeta? I'm not really sure which one we're on now, but the latest variant of COVID has really put a scare back into a lot of administrations and a lot of administrators. And, you know, understandably so, but also this appears to be, and I don't claim to be a scientist, don't claim to be a doctor, but it does appear that this particular strain seems to be affecting people who even are vaccinated, even have booster shots, let alone the people who don't have it. So what are we to do? Where do we go forward here? You know, the line between being cautious and concerned about the health and safety of everybody versus living in fear is something that all administrators and all administrations have to deal with. And the pro crowd of that says, let us live our lives and let us try to be safe in doing so, versus the crowd that is continuing to be cautious. I'm not going to say overly cautious, because I don't think you can be overly cautious, but if you're cautious, you're cautious. But that battle, where it gets won and lost, is interesting to me. You know, I think, you know, obviously we have certain groups who are most affected and should most definitely be concerned and cautious. But at the risk of, you know, the strain that it's going to create on athletic budgets and things of that nature, I just find it an interesting daily challenge for athletic administrations. I don't claim to have a right or wrong answer. I certainly have my opinions. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, or fortunately, I guess, you know, for a lot of people, you know, I'm not in a place have to make that decision. So it's definitely, but I see it work. You know, I was just at a high school event this past weekend Smaller gymnasium, 500 people, standing room only, a lot of people with masks, a lot of people without masks. The second year such event has been held. Hopefully, everyone stays safe and comes out of it safe. But I would not be surprised if, some people do or are affected with it. So all of that to say, Houston Tillotson got a big win on the road against Xavier. Xavier missed out on having a crowd. I think having a home crowd, especially like the one that Xavier is able to bring in, would have made for a big win for that program on that particular day. So let's get into some of the basketball talk from over the weekend. I'm going to start with Coppin State. Yes, I agree right there with you, Mr. Figures. Hopefully everything will be somewhat, trying to figure out what normal is. Who knows what normal is, who knows what normal is anymore. But let me go to Coppin State men's basketball, opening up league play with a victory over South Carolina State. Now, I made special note of South Carolina State and the fact that last week, this is a South Carolina State team which has made great strides. Coming into this ball game, they were 7-8. South Carolina State was one of the worst basketball programs in Division I basketball last year. Not HBCU basketball, Division I basketball. There are 360 some odd schools playing Division I basketball. They were near the bottom 5. That's how bad South Carolina State was a year ago. Sadly, for me as a Florida A&M Rattler, their only win came against Florida A&M. They finished 1-17. That's shameful that occurred, but it did happen. Fast forward to this year, South Carolina State off to a great non-conference winning. I mean, just the fact that they won 7 games from where they were a year ago says a lot. So fast forward to that, Coppin State now seems to have their own troubles. They're 2-13 coming into this ball game. They got their first win, not only of the season, of the year, because this is 2022, but also of the MEAC with a 74-65 win over South Carolina State. Coppin actually has an 11-8 series lead, and give some credit to Coppin State's. Let me make sure I find the young man's name here, because he had a big day here for Coppin State. And I'm reading this right off of the MEAC.com. So Tyree Corbett, who had his 7th double-double of the season and the first ever 2020 in Coppin State history this century. Well, this century, I should say history, this century. 23 points, 22 rebounds in the win for Coppin State. South Carolina State drops to 7-9. Real interesting to kind of see what Coppin State looks like. Obviously, last year, Coppin State had the offensive and defensive player of the year a year ago. And so to kind of see Coppin State struggling in the non-conference is something that hey, quite frankly, honestly, we're not used to seeing from them. And of course, that was the only men's game on the slate, as the Morgan State North Carolina Central game got postponed due to COVID-related issues. Most likely COVID-related issues in North Carolina Central, because Morgan State did play a game back on January 5th. They beat Goucher College 100-41. So the fact that game was postponed, most likely, and it was at Durham, most likely was a byproduct of some issues going on with North Carolina Central. Coppin State supposed to be traveling to Central on Monday. That game got postponed. So tomorrow, Monday, you'll have Morgan State and South Carolina State. That should be a pretty good contest over there on that side of the ledger for the men. Going over to the women's side, for the women, let's take a look at who actually be playing. And this is all so fluid. So that's one of the one of the interesting parts. You know, there's already been some postponements. South Carolina State women had to postpone their 2-game series against Coppell State and Morgan State. That was scheduled for Saturday, and then of course scheduled for Monday. So, you know, technically on Saturday, all of the games for the MEAC were postponed. So again, there we are talking about the effects of COVID as it, you know, just wreaks havoc on the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. We're trying to get off to their first weekend of games. Let's move over to the SWAC and take a look at some of those contests that happened over in the SWAC from this past week. And of course, you know, good for the SWAC, good for the SWAC women. Outside of the initial forfeit by, I believe it was a forfeit by Mississippi Valley State on Monday, January 3rd, most of the games have been played. Of course, the big highlight happened on Monday night where Florida A&M got a game-winning basket to defeat Bethune-Cookman and FAMU's first game, matter of fact, against or in the SWAC and against a rival, as the Rattlers used a 24-14 fourth quarter to get their first win of the season, first win in the SWAC. Congratulations to Coach Pillow, Shalon Pillow, on getting that win in that fourth quarter. As give some credit to Malia Bell, FAMU, who sort of on a little inbound play with about 0.7 seconds gets a little turn of the shoulder off the glass toss to win that contest for FAMU over Bethune. But you've had a full slate of games on Wednesday. All let's see, you had 10 games scheduled for the SWAC. All 10 played. Jackson State getting their first win of the year with a 75-49 win over Alcorn on Wednesday. Of course, again, these are women's basketball contests in the SWAC. Also, Alabama A&M getting a 65-56 win over Valley State. Texas Southern gets a win 73-66 on Wednesday. That's after they lost by 10 to Southern. Alabama State finally did play their first game on Wednesday. They defeated UAPB 54-40. Interesting matchup given the fact that UAPB was faring so well in the non-conference. So there was one of those first matchups. And Southern with 89-52 win. And already Southern has become that front runner that maybe a lot of people weren't paying attention to for women's basketball in the SWAC. But after Saturday's win on the road at FAMU, 71-55, Southern sits 3-0 in the conference. So that talk about a team that had a great week. How about Southern University going 3-0 this past week after getting wins not only against Texas Southern at home, Prairie View A&M at home, and then traveling on the road to Florida A&M. Jackson State, 79-58. We kind of thought that the rematch between Jackson State and Alabama State might be close like it was last year. Nah, wasn't close at all. 21-point victory for Jackson State. Amisha Williams, 26 points, 18 rebounds for Jackson State. Deja Rogan with 20 points in that contest. On the other side of the ledger, Shemaya Ward for Alabama State with 14 and Ayana Emanuel with 18. Ward only played 18 minutes in that contest. Not sure if it was injury related or not, but needless to say that the matchup that we had hoped and thought we might get never really appeared. Alcorn State with a 61-59 victory over Alabama A&M. Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M gets an 84-77 victory over Mississippi Valley State. UAPB rebounds after the loss to Alabama State, gets a win over Texas Southern. Texas Southern 1-2 so far. So if you take a quick look at the standings in the SWAC women, Southern sitting atop right now, 3-0, having the best week. Probably, if you had to say, hey, who was the team of the week in the women in the SWAC, you have to give it to Southern. 3-0, good impressive wins, 2 at home, 1 on the road. Jackson State 2-0 in the SWAC, followed by Prairie View A&M, Alabama A&M, and Alabama State, all sitting at 2-1. So that's a little bit of the SWAC. Joining me right now, if you're watching us on YouTube and Facebook, is my show partner, AD Drew. AD, how you doing, my man?
Trying not to get fined, man. Trying not to get fined.
All right. Well, just you're doing all right so far. You're able to come in, like you said. You come into class, you just kind of sit down, you open up your book, you just get to work like nothing happened, And so we just kind of keep going.
I just snuck into. See, the teacher closed the main door, but he forgot about that back door of the classroom, and you just sneak in and get there on the back row, and normally you wouldn't even ask any questions. You don't want to bring attention to you. Hey, you weren't in here 2 minutes ago when I looked in that row, but now you're here.
Exactly. So just put your head down and take notes and just keep going, right?
Just take notes. Just take that. Oh no, I got a true story. SBI, School of Business and Industry, Florida A&M University, and I don't remember whose class it was, but we had this was a Tuesday, Thursday class, so we had a test on Thursday. So Tuesday was a review day, and something happened, and I wound up walking in class like about 3 minutes late, and the teacher had closed the door, but I walked in the door, and he said, "You late? You need to go." I said, "I'll pay for this class. I'm gonna stay." And of course, I don't remember who the teacher was, but he said, "Okay, if you stay, I go." And he picked up his notes and walked out the class. And I had about 20 people looked at me like, "We ought to whoop yo, you know what?"
That was, it took me. That's the interesting dynamic of, and I don't know if HBCUs still do that, but that was one of the things that I found to be very interesting, because friends that I had who went to PWIs, larger schools, teachers just taught. They, it's like, hey, they got a classroom of 80 people, 70 people. You come in late, but you don't be loud and disrespectful. You just come in, or you leave whenever you want to, whatever, right? But I felt like I was back in high school. That regimented thing, like you just talked about, that felt so high schoolish. And yeah, you thought that just because you paid for that class, and the teacher pulled up and said, "Okay, that's fine. You want to disrespect me? I'll leave." Now I don't know if that's still. I don't know if you can still do that, because you could probably get away with trying to pull that every class period if you wanted to. Eventually, there'd be some sort of give and take, and somebody would lose that battle. But yeah,
and I wasn't trying to make a battle, but I was here to learn, and it was legitimate reason why I was late. It wasn't like I was just farting around, came late. But like I said, I don't remember what it was. We're talking 30 years ago now. But
yeah, no, you're good point. So I'm curious. That's one of those things I had to. I'm curious. Anybody out there, if you have sons or daughters who have been in attending HBCUs over the last 20 years, let's just say the last 15, 20 years, is that, we should ask Doc. We should ask Doc next time we get a chance. Ask, because obviously he teaches. Ask Dr. Cavill if that is still a thing where, if you're late, do you still come into class? Are you okay to come in if it's late? Do you have to beat the professor? That whole thing.
And it doesn't matter what level of class it is. If it's a 100 or 200 class versus a 300 or 400 level class, I wonder if that makes a difference with it also. And Dr. Cavill, if you're watching, put something in the comment on that if you're out there watching, Dr. Cavill.
Yeah, right. Well, all right. We were talking about the SWAC women for just a second, and so I'm jumping over to the men. It's just to sort of recap some of the men. One of the things that we're pointing out, Drew, is that the MEAC really kind of fell on a dud this past weekend, as technically none of the games that were scheduled to get off actually went off. You did have the one game in Coppin, where Coppin State. Coppin State had one game played, and that game went their way over South Carolina State. But really, every other game that was scheduled to play was postponed. Versus the SWAC, where look, we were critical. I was. I don't know about we, but I was very critical of the SWAC's COVID policy, just in terms of calling it very harsh. But you can already see it's had an effect on some teams and schools. The first game out the box, Prairie View dropped to they lost their opening contest, which was scheduled against Southern, as it turned out to be a forfeit, and then they were able to play. No, excuse me. They've lost their first two. Their first two games against Grambling and Southern were forfeits. So they started the year 0-2. Southern started the year 2-0. And then Southern's first game actually happened to be a road game. They traveled to Tallahassee, took on Florida A&M. They won 80-66. So it's hard, even though Southern is sitting atop of the SWAC right now with a 3-0 record, it'd be hard to call them the team of the week. I'd have to call the team of the week probably Alcorn State. Alcorn State gets a 78. Alcorn men get a 78-71 victory over Alabama A&M on the road on Saturday, and combine that with the road win that they picked up on Wednesday against Jackson State, 65-60. I would definitely have to call Alcorn State the team of the week going into conference schedule, or after the first week. Prairie View A&M did not disappoint, though, even though they were 0-2 going into their contest against Mississippi Valley State. They went into a double overtime game against the Delta Devils, in which, unfortunately for them, they lost 84-82. Props to Mississippi Valley State for getting their first win of the season. So in a battle of first, somebody must get a win. Mississippi Valley State got their first win of the year to improve to 1-2 in the SWAC, 1-12 overall. Prairie View still winless at 0-11. And, Mississippi Valley State, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm reading this correctly, the win for Mississippi Valley State was snapped a seven-game losing streak to Prairie View, which dated back to 2017. All credit to Mississippi Valley State for winning that contest. As I go back through just some of the other scores from Saturday's, Texas Southern with a 90-71 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Alabama State with a 72-57 win over Jackson State. And Grambling State gets a win essentially at the buzzer against Bethune-Cookman, 68-66. So, good job for Grambling. I've seen that actually Grambling's men and women got a win at Bethune on Saturday, and then they'll travel over to Tallahassee for that matchup. I was just trying to take a look at the quick standings here for the men. But, so Southern 3-0, Alcorn State 2-0. And then you have followed up by Texas Southern, Grambling State, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, all with 2-1. Prairie View, Florida A&M, and Jackson State all winless right now at either 0-2, 0-3. Prairie View still winless on the year. Very surprising for the team that was predicted to win the conference. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. Let's take a short break. Come back. We'll get into some more basketball talk here as we can go through some stuff that happened in the Division II NAIA level. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and AD here for you. We'll be back in just a moment.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU Sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter. HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and AD here. And want to make sure our producer hit that mute button there for me. And just want to remind you, if you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube, just go ahead and make sure you are like and subscribe to the show on those feeds, and on the make sure to go ahead and share that stream if you would for us. Go ahead and make sure you're following the BCSN Pod Zone, our Pod Zone, which you can find everywhere that we download. You download podcast on Spotify, everywhere we're at. Just go to BCSN Pod Zone. Go search BCSN Pod Zone. All right, Drew.
Before you get going, Chuck Hunt chimed in. At many of the larger institutions, the students are a number in the classes. The professors do not know you. So, and that's what I've heard, Chuck, because of the larger classes. You've got sometimes 150 students in a lecture hall, and there's no way the professors are going to know who you are. But for some reason, when we're at those institutions, we stick out like a sore thumb, because I don't care if it's 150 of them in their class. We the only one in their class sometimes.
Well said. Yeah. Before we get into talking, Drew, about the in the Division II or NAIA level, I want to give a shout out again to Tennessee State, men and women. The men picked up their first OVC victory on Saturday against Southeast Missouri, 95-84. Marcus Fitzgerald leading TSU with 23 points, a season high for the second-year freshman. What do you know? A freshman actually who's on campus getting work done. I believe, Drew, that moves Tennessee State to, I don't know if they played earlier this week. I have to do it.
I believe they're like, I've got to give me just a second. I could tell you what they are. Tennessee State on the men's side or women's side?
Men's side.
Men's side, I have them at 1-1 on the men's side. And on the women's side, they are 4-0.
Yes. Well, needless to say, okay, so
and that's
they lost.
And that's in conference.
Yeah, they lost in conference 78-94, but they continue to win games and do work, moving their record post Miller time has been, let's see, 5-6 wins, 2 losses, one of them by an OT. Well, what do you know? Tennessee State having success after the shenanigans by the ice cream man. Anyway, let's kind of move forward there, because I will let you know I will harp on that all year. Tennessee State, I will want them to have success, because I just want Tennessee State men's basketball to have success. That's all. I'm just going to put it that way. The more success they have,
I'm still waiting on that Percy. Which one is it, Percy or Hersey? With the Young Miller's TV commercial.
I'm not putting anything on the kid.
I'm just waiting to see. I'll just wait to see his commercial from his NIL deal or whatever type of marketing they bought for him for that 500.
Hey, look, we're going to talk about, I got a question for just the public in general regarding NIL in a moment, but later in the show. But yeah, so props to Tennessee State. I will be tracking Tennessee State men's basketball and rooting for them every moment of the day, as I want them to have success. I want them to have success, and it's not about it. Trust me, it needs to happen. They just need to just keep winning, fellas. Go Tigers, go! And plus, my sister's an alum, so I can use that as a reason to root for them.
That's your fan. That's the reason for your fandom. As long as they're not playing FAMU.
Yes. And the fact that Percy Miller is no longer floating around that program. All right, anyway, to the women, the women for Tennessee State, 4-0 in conference after getting a 83-64 win. So they got a sweep in the OVC. The women are now 4-0 in the conference. Got an interesting matchup later this week against Murray State. So, those games are on ESPN Plus. So shout out to Tennessee State women on that contest. Let's move over into on the Division II and NAIA level, if we can, Drew, just some of the highlights from this past weekend. How about the Benedict men? Benedict with their 10th straight win, secured a 111-68 victory over Edward Waters this past weekend. Benedict had 6 players in double figures. The 111 points scored is a season high for them. They connected on 16 3-pointers. 16. Good Lord. Benedict is 11-3 right now. They outscored and out-rebounded Edward Waters, 59-35 on the boards. So, our good friends over at Edward Waters, Coach Sumners. I know they'll get it fixed. He's a good coach. That's a good program, but Benedict might just be on might be one of those teams this year. Drew might just be one of those teams.
Yeah. Speaking of Benedict, Brian, how about the Benedict women though? Lost to Lane College, which at that point in time had picked up their third straight conference win, which had temporarily moved Lane into first place into the SIAC West. That was Benedict women's first conference loss of the season. We know the Benedict women for the last 3 years, behind the likes of people like Ayana Bay, have dominated the Eastern Division of the SIAC. Benedict scored to open the game, Brian, and that was the last lead of the game. Think about that. So Kayla Simmons led Lane with 19 and 12. It's a double-double. Braylon Tate came off the bench for Lane with 12.7 rebounds, and Tasha Patty also poured in 10 for Lane. So Lane with the upset victory over Benedict on, I believe that was Wednesday in Jackson. But when they had to travel back across to Savannah State on Saturday, lost to Savannah State on Saturday. So Lane with the split, they lost to right now the number 2 team in the conference. Excuse me, they defeated the number 2 team in the East and then lost to the number 1 team in the East as of right now.
Since you mentioned Lane, I'll mention their women's basketball program, but more so it's about the Savannah State women who played Lane's women on Saturday. Savannah State continues their role. They got a 75-54 win over Lane on Saturday at Savannah State. Savannah State sitting at 6-0 in the conference, now sitting as the only unbeaten team in conference.
Can I take that one step further before you continue on? As the only undefeated team in HBCU basketball.
Okay. Good
continue
point.
on.
Yeah. Well, that's how big that win. Lane defeated Benedict back on Wednesday, as you mentioned, Lane's women. And so, for them, the Lane women with a 57-50 win over Benedict, previously unbeaten. That was the last, last week, I think when we talked, we had Savannah State and Benedict as 2 unbeaten teams in conference play. So Savannah State now sitting at 10-0 overall. Still off to their best start, I believe, in the history of the program. Off to their best start. And again, having seen that team a couple times, their average margin of victory right now is in the 20s. I think it may even be in the 20, 22, 23 range, but I know it's at least 20 plus. And so the Savannah State, definitely a team worth watching. They just play just the way their style of play is unusual for most girls basketball programs that I've seen at the HBCU level. I mean, and that's just because of the transition offense, how fluid it is. I think on a position by position basis, I think they have the perfect setup to run what they run. And so, hopefully if good health stays with them, that team will be tough to beat. This upcoming week, Savannah State host Edward Waters. So they'll be coming up from Jacksonville for a 6 p.m. game on Monday. And then Savannah State hits the road Wednesday. They travel to Mobile, Alabama to play Spring Hill. And then they go to Georgia, Fort Valley, Georgia, to play Fort Valley State on Saturday. So a good stretch, 4 games in a 8-day period. If I did the math on that right, that's 4 games in an 8-day period from Saturday to Saturday for Savannah State. So it's a nice little gauntlet. One of the unusual scheduling quirks that you get in college basketball, if I must say so.
Yeah.
What else do we see, Drew? What else in terms of the NAIA and the D2 level? Any other basketball results or outcomes that caught your eye?
Yeah, the one team that I don't think anybody really wants to run up against, especially when they get on the road, it's going to be the Miles Golden Bears. Coach Fred Watson up there in Birmingham, Alabama. They picked up a 65-63 victory on Saturday after they had 2 games postponed due to COVID uh, this week. So Miles picked up a victory against Lemoyne Owen on Saturday. But the problem with that, Brian, is we have no game report, we have no statistics or anything. We just have a final score. As Coach Bonzik Wells has, even with the loss, has Lemoyne at a 75 record as of right now in the SIAC. That's in the Western Division, 3-4 in conference. So, but if you've seen Miles men's basketball team, it's gonna be great to see them versus Benedict if that matchup should happen at some point in time this season or in the tournament. Hopefully, that will be a finals matchup and not be one of those games that winds up being a quarter or a semifinal due to COVID and seeding due to COVID. I hope that should right now that would be a good championship matchup in the SIAC.
Mm-hmm. Let me jump, if I can, over to the Red River Conference, because in the beginning of in the show, I kind of made mention of the contest earlier this week between Houston Tillotson and 15th ranked Xavier. That contest was earlier this week, played on the 6th, which I believe was Thursday. Houston Tillotson on the road traveled to Xavier, got a 69-64 win. Of course, Xavier's not allowing any fans, spectators right now, do their COVID policies on that campus, I guess. So they seem to be the only team in conference that's doing that. So they lost that contest 69-64. But also got to make mention, Paul Quinn is still sitting unbeaten at 13-0 in the conference, 2-0 in conference play, still 13 in a row, Drew, as the streak continues. And I don't know. It's interesting. It's one of those things where we're gonna have to continue to keep our eyes open and pay attention. Again, Paul Quinn's not eligible for the postseason this year, but makes you wonder how much of a headache is this team gonna be for other people as they continue to put up wins. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do in that level.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow, Brian, as the next set of NAIA rankings come out on tomorrow to see if they are even allowed to be ranked because they're not eligible for the postseason. I'm just curious to see how that's going to be.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point that you bring up, to see whether they will actually be, will they be ranked? On the women's side in the Red River, Xavier women got a 50-48 win over Houston Tillotson on Thursday. And then they followed that up. Unfortunately, they lost on Saturday to Our Lady of the Lake, 56-51. Tough loss for them. Paul Quinn's women got an 85-84 victory over Jarvis Christian on Saturday. So, that's an interesting, good win for Paul Quinn on the women's side. Let's shoot over, Drew. Shoot over to that result. I know a little bit later we talked about top of the second hour. We're going to be talking to Asheika Alexander, but Langston women with a good win over the weekend as well.
Yeah, Langston is Wait a minute, I lost my notes right there. Langston's women are 7-2 in the Sooner Athletic Conference, having picked up another victory over this weekend. They played, I believe they played your favorite team, Brian, Swag U, Southwest Assemblies of God. I believe that's who that was that they played on Saturday. As I'm trying to, yeah, 92-78 victory over Swag U. Alexander and Talia Harris hit 23 for Langston. Alana Spencer added 15, and Jaden Chestnut chipped in 14 to round out the scoring, at least the double-digit scorers for Langston. Langston, once again, another one of those teams that we want to see when the rankings come out both Monday and Wednesday in the NAIA and see where they're at. Langston sitting in second place in the Sooner Athletic Conference as of right now, Brian. So shout out to there. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to go inside of the program a little bit with Asheika Alexander when she comes on. And, it's not too often we actually get to talk to a player in season, Brian, during their season here on the Sports Wrap. So this is going to be a real fun interview that I'm hopefully we're going to have.
All right, let's keep going here because I wanted to make sure we get through the CIAA, the men and the women. Still dealing with a few postponements here and there on the men's side from this past weekend. Fayetteville State had a game that was postponed. Bowie State had to deal with postponements, and Johnson C. Smith earlier this week. Those games were all postponed. But on Saturday, Virginia State got a 68-65 win over Livingstone. Elizabeth City State, 61-47. Claflin with a 78-74 win over Bowie. And if I go take a look at the standings, Fayetteville State sitting at 3-0 right now in conference play, 8-5 overall. Claflin coming in at 2-2. Over on the northern side, Virginia Union and Lincoln, PA, still sitting at 2-0. Virginia Union 9-3 overall. Lincoln, PA 9-4 overall. Elizabeth City State 3-2 in the conference. They played 5 games and 10-5 overall. So, the inconsistency in the scheduling, I have a feeling is just going to be one of those things that you see and probably won't level itself out until February. You're going to have, especially in these first 2 to 3 weeks of January, I think you're going to have teams that are in, teams are out. You got a Monday schedule of 4 CIAA games. Hopefully they all go off, but who knows? That's just where we're at right now with the scheduling. The women dealing with a similar thing. Women had 2 games postponed. Johnson C. Smith, Fayetteville State. Those games were postponed. Bowie State's women got a 73-51 win over Claflin. Livingstone women with a 65-56 win over Virginia State on Saturday. And when you go to look at the standings, you still have Lincoln, PA on the northern side and the women's side sitting at 2-0, 9-3 overall. Virginia State with a 3-1 conference record. Elizabeth City State and Bowie with a 2-1 conference record. And then on the southern side, Livingstone 2-0, followed by Fayetteville State at 2-1. So there's probably a little more strength over on the northern side of the women. All right, Drew. Any other
almost
basketball?
Looks like football. I would say almost looked like men's football right there with the strength of the north.
Yeah, definitely. Any other basketball notes that you wanted to get to?
No, I think you pretty much wrapped it up when it comes to basketball. Although I did have one non-basketball. I did have a couple of track things that I wanted to get into there, Brian.
Well, yeah. I just thought there were a host of other news and notes that we wanted to get to. I figured that, since we've got Asheika coming up at the top of the second hour, instead of stepping away for a break, I thought we'd just kind of stay here and just go through some of those various news and notes off the court, because definitely the HBCU news is just pumping. It's interesting you said track and field. That I was not expecting you to go track and field, giving all of the news that's happening in the gridiron in the world of football. So I definitely was interesting. So I'll let you go ahead and get your track and field note out of the way, because I think all the stuff going on in the HBCU football space will just, take the room. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of those different stories coming up on the other side of the interview with Asheika. So fire away with what you got.
Well, unfortunately, the two track stories are of somber note. First one hits close to home for us here in us Rattlers. Coach Bobby Lang passed away earlier this week. Bobby Lang was a football, track, and he was a health and PE professor at Florida A&M University there for 33 years, and we know he's produced a few Olympians there in Tallahassee. What does it say? From 1966 to 1968, his 4x4 team, James Ashcroft, Nathaniel James, Major Hazelton, and Eugene Billington, won the event 3 times in the row at the Penn Relays. And if you know anything about track, the Penn Relays are like the Super Bowl of track and field. Another sprinter, Ronaldo Ray Robinson, ran for Coach Lang. I think he missed Bullet Bob, though. I think he did miss Bullet Bob Hayes in his coaching career. So Coach Lang, longtime track coach at FAMU, and I had him for a couple of classes during my tenure there at FAMU also. I don't know if you had him for a class there, Brian.
No, I didn't, but I was aware who he was. I did, I think I did speak to him through some capacity as I was either interning with the athletic department or working with the FAMU, and I somehow interacted with him in some way. So I did speak to him a couple of times, but never in a prolonged conversation. And I didn't have any classes with him.
Yeah. Moving over into Texas, also another loss. Barbara Jacket, longtime women's track and field coach at Prairie View A&M, 25-year coach at Prairie View A&M. 18 national championships, 23 SWAC champions ran up under her. Championships, she had, 9 indoor, 6 outdoor, 8 cross-country championships. So, and she was, count this, Brian, she was SWAC Coach of the Year 23 times. So, talk about domination in the track and field at genre. We've lost two greats in track and field. Jacket turned out 57 All-Americans and 5 Olympic contenders during her tenure there at Prairie View A&M. So she retired and took on the job of she was in 1992 Olympics. She was the head coach of the 1992 women's track and field team for the Olympics. So talk about some prestigious person there in the Texas community. So, our prayers and thoughts go to both universities and to the families of both the individuals and the athletes who competed for them and the lives that they touched along their way.
Well said, Drew. Let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back on the other side, more news and notes, plus we'll have an interview, a conversation with Langston University Lady Lions women basketball player Asheika Alexander on the other side. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap We'll be back after these words.
Some carriers will give you just one measly entertainment subscription. One is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No. 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment. Because everyone deserves better. And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon, so now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson. Like, really loves.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft. Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry. Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more. But it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it. Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Bounty versus the old family dish towel. Drying with a fresh sheet of Bounty leaves your hands cleaner than a used dish towel that can carry and redistribute food residue. So ditch the dish towel for better hand hygiene. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Troy, you work here? I'm never not working. Like Head and Shoulder Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working. Head and Shoulder Scalp Shield, never not working.
Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music. The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless. Pick something we all like.
Okay, hold on.
What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password? Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Bryan, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan Fulford, AD Drew here, second hour of the show. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching us on Facebook and YouTube. Go ahead and follow Black College Sports Network on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at MyBCSN1. And go download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app on Google and Apple Play Store. Just search MyJBN or MyBCSN1. And if you also hit mute and then go ahead and tune in to the show. I'm just telling my producer here, hit my mute button. Thank you. And then also, if you would, go follow us, share the show on YouTube and Facebook as you're watching us, and make sure you're a part of the BCSN Pod Zone. All right, Drew, a lot of basketball talk, and I know we'll have Asheika Alexander coming up, but plenty of news in the gridiron world of HBCU sports.
I was going to say, hopefully we have her on her.
Yeah, well, I mean, she said she'd be here. She'll be here. Uh, yeah, she'll be here. Yeah, she'll be here. Hey, want to make note over the weekend at the FCS put their season to bed. The NCAA championships, North Dakota State, of course, do what they do. They won their 9th title. But more importantly, HBCUs made out big time at the Stats Perform FCS Awards. Of course, Coach of the Year, which is the Eddie Robinson Award, had already been announced. It went to Coach Deion Sanders of Jackson State. The Rookie or Freshman of the Year, I believe it's called, the Jerry Rice Award, went to Shador Sanders. And then the announcement of the Defensive and Offensive Players of the Year was part of, they invited the top 3 candidates who were all invited to Frisco, Texas for the award ceremony, and much to what I thought was going to happen, but you never know. And it's kind of interesting how it went down, so we'll kind of talk about that in a moment. But the Buck Buchanan Award, which is named for the top FCS player, went to none other than Florida A&M University defensive lineman, also the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, Isaiah Land, for his incredible season in which he led FCS not only in sacks but in tackles for loss. And, he becomes the 2nd consecutive HBCU player to win the Buck Buchanan Award. I mean, there had been a string of no HBCU guys winning that award. I believe he is now the 4th overall to win it. But Isaiah wins the award 2nd consecutive year. I believe the young man from Southern University, name just escapes me, but to no worries right now. But Southern University had a defensive lineman win it for the spring season. But Isaiah Land, he is the 5th HBCU player, so I was one off. He's the 1st Florida A&M Rattler, the 5th HBCU player, 2nd consecutive in the 27-year history. Of course, Land, 19 sacks on the year, 25.5 tackles for loss to help that dark cloud defense, as they call it, in Florida, in Tallahassee. And so that's a big accomplishment for Land. Drew, a young man who kind of really, he kind of bid his time. He went, he wasn't highly recruited. Might be, when it's all said and done, might be one of the greatest recruiting finds by Coach Willie Simmons in his career. Obviously, there may be others, but Coach Simmons saw something in that young man when he was visiting his high school. I believe he went to Grayson High School in Georgia, and he saw something in that young man and offered him an opportunity to come to Tallahassee. And the rest has kind of become history. What's your thoughts there, Drew, on Isaiah winning that Buck Buchanan Award?
Before we go any further, Chuck Hunt is you're talking about Jordan Lewis was the name that you escaped
Jordan
you there,
Lewis.
Brian.
Yes.
Appreciate that, Chuck Hunt. Look, I'm just happy that we've got HBCU players winning awards that are named after HBCU greats. I mean, let's start off with the basic. Just the fact that we're getting, and it's not even that we have to win those awards, Brian. Let's be it's nice to have us as finalists for these awards. Don't give us the award because we're HBCU players and the awards named after HBCU greats. No, give us the award because we deserve it. So just the fact that we are finalists, we are getting consideration for these awards, and now that we're actually winning these awards, it shines a brighter light on the HBCU product. Now, let's be real. Is this award, or are these awards kind of like the Heisman? And what I mean by the Heisman is, how many Heisman Trophy winners do we see who wind up either not getting drafted or bust in the league? hopefully these awards open up an opportunity for these players to get a legitimate shot at making it at the next level. That's what I'm looking for these awards, and for a player like Isaiah Land to win this award, he had a tremendous season. It needs to be recognized. Not only does it bring recognition to him as an individual, but it brings recognition to Florida A&M and their staff and their recruiting prowess, but also to the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fact that just like the Heisman, regardless of where else you go, you'll always be able to put that behind you. Heisman Trophy winner, or Heisman Trophy award winner, and there will be eventually opportunities, whether it be in the autograph markets, which will be popular, especially now that you have NIL coming.
And
I would not be
I was going to ask
surprised.
about that. Now
Well,
does he
yeah,
get
I
to
wouldn't
go
be
on a
surprised. Yeah, I
autograph
wouldn't be
tour
surprised if
with that
coming up in
award?
the future. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if coming up in the future, you see some things where there may be some autograph signing opportunities, and now next to his name, he can sign Buck Buchanan Award winner, and so, hey, look, congratulations to that organization for continuing that legacy, and yeah, I love the fact that you have the Walter Payton Offensive Player of the Year award, which actually went to the quarterback did not go to the young man that Florida A&M played, Cole Kelly, which I was shocked at. But it did go to the quarterback from Incarnate Word, who he had a good year, but he was in the same conference with the kid from southeastern Louisiana. But anyway, we're talking about Bell and the defensive side of the award, which goes to Buck Buchanan, would name the Buck Buchanan Award. You have the Eddie Robinson Award, the Jerry Rice Award. So, look, yes, right now, our major HBCUs are part of the FCS. And yes, I know we don't predominantly play in the playoffs, and that's a subject and a sore point for some people, but we are a part of the FCS community. And so having players winning those national awards, receiving the National All-American recognition, says something. And we don't have to always play against those other FCS schools. Although, look, I mean, I think it'd be nice for us to be able to play and compete against them, to sort of show our mettle, to show what we have. But I mean, our product is good. Our players are good. We need our players to be recognized as such at the next level, and so that's a whole nother discussion that I think that people will have out there. So yeah, one interesting note that I read regarding the voting, Isaiah did not win the first place votes. He didn't actually. The one of the guys from Montana State won, or I think outplaced him in first place votes 15-11. But because it's a point system based on first, second, and third votes, Isaiah had enough total votes that he ended up winning the award. So that was kind of interesting.
He was probably number 2 on everybody's ballot, who he wasn't number 1 on, and the other kid might have been 3 on a lot of those on those other ballots. So
exactly, or he may have been lower down. But Isaiah, you got to imagine you probably had him first or second on a lot of ballots. I'd probably guesstimate 90% of the ballots, 95, I'd even go that high, had Isaiah Land either probably first or second on their ballots. So that props to Isaiah. And look, he's coming back another year. I saw a tweet from him that said he had a lot of Power 5 schools that were reaching out to him after the season that he had. And he was quite very open about the fact that you didn't want me when I was nobody, and now here you come calling when I'm somebody. And so he's staying loyal, and he's a rattler. He's gonna stay with
And more
FAMU. So
and more power to him for doing that. It part of that obviously is the loyalty factor that he is placing to Coach Simmons for believing in him. But maybe some of that has to do with the culture. Once you get, Brian, once we get on these campuses and get immersed in the HBCU culture, it's hard. It's hard for us to go. Shoot, it's hard for some of us to leave after we graduate. People like to stay in those communities and stay immersed in those cultures. So, more power to Isaiah Land for not thinking that their ice is colder than our ice.
Well said. Well said. Or that their internet runs faster. Yes, exactly. Well,
I know their internet may run fast on their side of town compared to my side of town.
That's it. That's funny. Hey, just a little scheduling update because I know a lot of people might have been waiting on to see if or to hear our interview with Asheika Alexander. At the last minute, she had some other obligations. Of course, she is a student athlete, and so she's going to be unable to join us today. But we're hoping that we can reschedule with her, and so hopefully we'll have her on at another time. So just wanted to give sort of a scheduling update on that because I know we talked about it more than a couple times, and so it's all good. We'll eventually have that conversation with Asheika soon. Let me move over to a second note. I want to talk about a new hire before I kind of get into maybe one of the big stories that was buzzing over the last 48 hours. Want to make note, earlier this week, Prairie View A&M finally has their man, and actually he's been there all this time, longtime assistant coach. Bubba McDowell was named the head football coach, or the next head football coach, taking over for Eric Dooley. Bubba, Coach McDowell, is a former All-Pro NFL player, had been in the program, I believe, since 2011, when he started as the safeties coach, which he was until 2018, and then he was upgraded to the assistant coach at that time. He is a product of the U, where he played 3 seasons at the University of Miami from 86 to 88 under Hall of Fame coach Jimmy Johnson. He was a part of that 12-0 87 squad. All those squads wreaked havoc, man. They just beat up on teams, my poor Notre Dame Irish being one of them. That 87 team was ridiculous. But he's a former Hurricane, went to the NFL, selected in the 3rd round by the Houston Oilers. Spent 6 of his 7 seasons with the Oilers. He was an All-Pro second team in 1991. Even had some coaching ties when he decided to go into coaching with Texas Southern. He spent 3 years with them before moving over to the University of Houston in 2007. A quote from Donald Reed, the Prairie View A&M athletic director. He says, quote, "I chose Coach McDowell because of his vast and successful experience in collegiate and professional football. His leadership style and student-athlete-centered approach align with our goals to see our athletes excel in the classroom, on the field, and in the community. I'm impressed by Coach McDowell's commitment to PV, and I know he'll lead us to accomplish great things." What are your thoughts on the hire, Drew, and take it a step further in that, look, let's just be real. Coach McDowell may not have been the first choice, but at the end of the day, it may not matter as long as you are the right choice.
First of all, I think it's kind of interesting. NFL career, primarily in the city of Houston. Coached at the 2 Houston area HBCUs, Texas Southern and Prairie View, with a stop at the University of Houston in between that, if I've got my timing correct there, right? So I bring all that up today you're getting someone who knows that culture, that market in that area, and probably already has a lot of high school ties when it comes to recruiting and getting in the athletes that he needs in that area. Advantage McDowell. Number one. Number two, the trend in the SWAC has been, with the exception of Southern, to get coaches with an NFL pedigree, be it as a former player or former coaches in the NFL. Advantage McDowell, having played for the Houston Oilers for 6 of his 7 years in the league. And it also goes back to the Prairie View, I guess the roots of the last. Now this makes 3 coaches in a row, Brian, that Prairie View has promoted from within to the ranks of head coach. First one being Willie Simmons, then Eric Dooley, now Bubba McDowell, all promoted from within after the coaching searches.
I think Simmons came from
Alcorn. Or did Simmons come from Alcorn? Okay. They promoted an assistant. But Dooley was a hire from within.
Dooley was an assistant. Dooley was an assistant. Yes.
But the third consecutive assistant coach that was promoted to head coach. As without any type of head coaching experience, which kind of goes to the mantra that Prairie View has shown in the past. So Prairie View looks like they get the best of both worlds, and sometimes the best candidate is the person who's right there in your face. You know, Brian, it's almost like that. It's almost like that girl, you know, you've been dating this girl, you've been dating that girl, you've been dating that girl, but you've been talking to your friend who you grew up with down the street about all these different girls you've been dating, not realizing that she was the one who you should have been dating and ultimately married the whole time. That's kind of what this looks like in this situation, Brian.
Wow. You know. Great analogy. Great analogy. Yeah. Great analogy. So, yeah, I think it's a good look. Again, you don't know if it's a good hire yet until, but you bring up good points. The fact that from what we heard, you and I both talked to similar people. Prairie View folks wanted somebody from that area. They wanted a Texas guy, Texas person, which, you know, they weren't, you know, the word on the street is they weren't a little happy with some of, you know, Dooley, of course, had connections to Louisiana, weren't necessarily excited about the Louisiana connection that was coming in. So they wanted more Texas. And so they got Texas and Bubba McDowell. You know, as you said, he's been Texas for 20 plus years.
20 plus years, yes.
Yeah, so he is Texas, and he's Houston. He's that Houston area. So, look, people will question why it took so long. They'll question the people who could have been the coach, but at the end of the day, those players know Bubba McDowell. Alumni know Bubba McDowell. That could be the win that, you know, their AD and that program needs. Let the wins and losses sort itself out and see what happens on the other side. All right.
Yeah, and let's also watch the transfer portal, because we'll see how
busy,
but let's look at Prairie View. Let's see how many players have already left Prairie View, and let's see how many players leave Prairie View with this hire. If you don't see a whole lot of movement out of the program, then internally that means he has the players respect the ones that are already there on campus, if you don't see a whole lot of movement out of the Prairie View program. So watch the portal to see the players' reaction to this hire.
All right. Let's take a break, come back, talk about one of the big recruiting stories that happened over the weekend, talk a little bit about some of the other things that are happening in HBCU sports. And let's go ahead and break out the BCSN top 5 basketball rankings on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU Sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and AD here, and I start this segment by just saying winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right, I love the last week of the football season. That's all I can say. Opportunities galore, Drew. If you know what you're doing, pay attention. Hey, I want to remind you guys, go be a part of the BCSN Pod Zone, our podcast channel where you can go back and listen to all of the shows that are part of the Black College Sports Network, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown show, Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the ONG Strike Zone, our show, the BCSN Sports Wrap, and more, all available for you to listen to right after a day or so after they actually air. So, but obviously an opportunity where you can go. And when you're on those various platforms, we're available on Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Breaker, again, any and everywhere, Anchor. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe it. And if you have an opportunity to rate and review, give us whatever the highest possible rating is that you can give, so that we can tell the algorithm lords that we are good for advertising. You can even support and make donations. You can be a subscriber and donate and just say thanks for all the work that goes into all of our shows. All right, let's go into our top 5 BCSN top 5 rankings. Again, these are rankings, computer-generated rankings, top 5 teams, Division I, Division II, and the NAIA level. All right, so we'll start with the men's Division I, going from 5 to 1. Coming in at number 5, and let me just make sure to go through, Drew. Go through what I'm total wins, total losses, conference wins, conference losses. So that's how I read them out, and just take note. Total wins may look a little different than what you see on school websites. Why, Drew?
On the Division I level, both men and women, we only count victories or losses. We only count games against other Division I programs. Be those group of, I guess, they're not called Power 5 in basketball, but the Power 6 conferences in basketball, or the other conferences in basketball. For the Division II and NAIA programs, once again, we do not count games played against Division I programs, but we do count Division II games played against NAIA programs, and vice versa, NAIA programs against Division II in the rankings.
All right, well said. So number 5 in the D1 men's level. Coming in at number 5 with a total wins and loss record of 4-9, 2-0 in their conference, North Carolina A&T. Number 4 with a 6-4 record overall, that would be Norfolk State, still waiting to play a conference game. Number 3, moving up, Alcorn State moving into the number 3 spot, 2-0 in conference, 3-11 overall. Number 2, Texas Southern. Texas Southern coming in overall 4-8, but have a 2-1 conference record. And then the number 1 team in Division I, Southern University, 6-7 overall, 3-0. Well, now 3-0. I know you have 2-0 there, Drew, but probably 3-0. And it's just interesting that the strength of schedule, as noted, Alcorn State 3-11 overall. Alcorn State has the 3rd toughest strength of schedule in Black college basketball, amongst the HBCU Division I teams. So 3rd toughest, and of course coming off the good week that they had, moving up to 2-0. Just on the outside, you've got Alabama State, Coppin, and Alabama A&M. Go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, people may ask us, how can you not have Norfolk with their 9-4 record on paper, 6-4 in our computers, as the number 1 team? Well, unfortunately for Norfolk, because they did not get an opportunity to play a conference game this week, our algorithm weighs conference games give extra weight to conference games, wins and losses in conference. And since Norfolk has not played a conference game, and the other 4 teams in our top 5 have played a conference game, that is why Norfolk wound up dropping down to the number 4 spot. So, but I think we'll have a little bit of market correction next week once they get into conference games, Brian.
Well said. Over on the women's side, our top 5, starting from 5 to 1, coming in at number 5, Alabama A&M with an overall record of 2-8, 2-1 in conference. Number 4, Hampton University out of the Big South, 6-6 overall record, 2-0 in conference. Number 3, Southern University. So that moves Southern into the top 3 for both the men and women. They're the number 3 women team, 3-9 overall, 3-0 record. And it should be noted, Southern University women have the 3rd toughest HBCU strength of schedule in among Division I HBCU teams. Jackson State comes in at number 2, 4-6 overall, 2-0 in conference, and number 1, I believe, for the second consecutive week. Tennessee State University now sitting at 8-6 overall, 4-0 in conference. On the outside of our top 5, trying to get in, you have Alabama State, Morgan State, and UAPB. Anything you want to add in there, Drew?
Nah, you about summed it up, especially the note that you made about Southern with that third toughest strength of schedule in HBCU basketball right now on the women's side. But our team on the outside looking in, Alabama State, has the toughest strength of schedule for women in HBCU basketball.
Well said, and they're 4-9 overall. So good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
1-1 in conference.
Thank you. 1-1 in conference. Okay, moving down to Division II in the men's side from 5-1, Division II men's. Number 5, Miles College coming in at 8-3 overall, 6-1 in conference. Number 4, Lincoln, PA, 9-4 overall, 2-0 in conference. Number 3, Virginia Union, 9-3 overall, 2-0 in conference. Number 2, Fayetteville State with an 8-5 record, 3-0 in conference. And I wanted to also add, Fayetteville State has the second toughest strength of schedule in among Division II HBCU schools.
So they've earned that spot.
Yes, they have. And number 1, Benedict College with an 11-3 overall record, 7-0 in conference. On the outside, looking in, very close to getting in, Winston-Salem State, who have an 8-4 overall record, 8-2 in conference play. Tuskegee and Elizabeth City State, West Virginia State, all just on the outside, looking to get in. Anything you want to add on the D2 level?
Virginia Union, our number 3 team, has the number 6 strength of schedule also. One that we might want to make note of since we're talking about strength of schedule.
Okay. Moving over to the women, Division II level for the women. Number 5, from 5-1 here. Number 5, Miles College, number 5, with a 9-2 overall record, 3-2 in conference. Number 4, Savannah State, 10-0, unbeaten, 6-0 in conference. Number 3, Tuskegee University, Tuskegee, 8-2 overall, 3-1 in conference. Number 2, Lincoln, PA, 9-3 overall, 2-0 in conference. And number 1, Benedict College, 11-5 overall, 6-1 in conference. So that means Benedict with the number 1 men and number 1 women rated conference going into the upcoming week. And what's interesting, Drew, a lot of people they'll have some controversy, or they'll add why Savannah State. Explain why Savannah State might be 4.
Because when you look at the strength of schedule for our HBCUs, and there are 30 women HBCU programs, Savannah State is number 30th, being the easiest schedule thus far in HBCU women's basketball. Those teams on the outside looking in, Brian, I don't know if you're going to get to those. West Virginia State, 7-3, 3-2. Elizabeth City State, 9-2, 2-1. Fayetteville State, 5-5, 2-1. And just because I like to say it, because we don't mention this school too often, UDC, 7-6, 3-1 in conference.
All right. Moving over to the NAIA level, NAIA men and women. Let's start with the men from 5-1. 5-1, number 5 with a big road win this past week. Houston Tillotson comes in at number 5, 4-10 overall, 2-0 in conference play. Number 4 is the team that Houston Tillerson beat, and that's Xavier University. They come in at number 4, 8-2 overall, 1-1 in conference play. Number 3, Stillman coming in 10-3, 3-3 overall. Number 2 by
Although
a.
they lost, I believe, still but lost 2 this week.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yes.
So that's interesting. We'll see how that affects them going forward. Number 2 by a smidge over Stillman. Number 2, Paul Quinn, 11-0 overall. No conference wins and losses. I'm assuming we're not counting those because they're not eligible. Is that the case for Paul Quinn?
I do believe so. I have to go back and double check that though, Brian.
Okay.
But you know,
Right.
Red River's just getting going this week. They may have they may not have played a conference game as of yet. Some teams in Red River have played. Most teams in Red River played no more than 2 conference games thus far.
Good point. Number 1, you've got Talladega. Talladega 13-1 overall, 4-0 in conference play. Strength of schedule just on the outside, trying to get into the top 5 is Florida Memorial, 8-10, who actually have the number 3 toughest strength of schedule among NAIA HBCUs, followed by Tougaloo and then Morris. So that's it's just sitting on the outside. Tougaloo with an 8-6 record, Morris 5-4. Any thoughts you want to add in there regarding NAIA?
I expect Tougaloo to get in there sooner or later. That's a little bit of market correction once again because of how the algorithm is put together. Tougaloo is hurt by the fact that they have not played a conference game yet. Once they start getting those conference games in, they'll probably quickly rise up the ranks.
All right. Let's go over to the NAIA women from 5-1, coming in at number 5, Florida Memorial, 7-5 overall, 5-0 in the conference, in the Sun Conference. That's a tough conference, and that's pretty impressive, coming in at 5-0 in conference play. Number 4 is Stillman. Stillman coming in at number 4 with a 5-5 record, 1-2 in conference play. Number 3, Langston University, 11-3 overall, 7-2 in conference play. Number 2, Rust College coming in 11-3 overall, and the number 1 team still sitting there, I believe, second straight week, Talladega. So Talladega women, who actually have the number 2 strength of schedule, number 2 toughest strength of schedule among HBCUs. And Stillman, I guess I should have mentioned, Stillman is number 4. They actually have the 5th toughest strength of schedule among
That would
HBCUs.
be correct. Yeah, that would be correct. And the teams on the outside looking in, Brian, UVI with the 5-4. When the last time we mentioned UVI, University of Virgin Islands? Because we don't mention, we need to say their whole name. But they're 5-4 right now, Brian. 3-2.
Well, don't know who UVI is.
Yeah, 3-2 versus other AI. They're an AII, Association of Independent Institutions. Remember, they're 3-2 against those teams. And Paul Quinn, 4-3, 1-1, and Xavier with a 5-6 record, 1-1 in the Red River Conference, Brian. So there you have it as far as the NAIA schools.
I don't think you mentioned Edward Waters sitting right there at just on the outside of the top 5, 8-6 overall.
Because we still have not got an official word on how to classify Edward Waters. So we don't. We had them listed. If you notice, they're listed under both NCAA and NAIA. We don't know officially how to classify because they're in their transition year. So they're just kind of a team that's just sitting there in limbo. But if they're
as far as we're concerned,
yes. As far as we're concerned.
Yeah. So again, just to recap from the just the number 1s, the number 1 men's ranked team, and how about programs? Pretty impressive. Southern University, number one in the men, number 3 in the women. In Tennessee State, women number 1 on the Division I level. Division II level, it's Benedict College with the number 1 men and women's program. And then on the NAIA level, it's Talladega with the number 1 men and women's program. So
you forgot one, Brian.
Did
Miles
I?
men and women. Miles men and women both in the top 5.
Yes, yeah, in the Division II level.
2.
Yep, you're
correct.
right. Yeah. Just trying to see if anybody else has 2 programs sitting in there. I think
that covers it.
I think that's it. Florida Memorial is close. Stillman actually is top 5 in both NAIA.
Yeah, double top 5. Yeah, and Tuskegee has the women in and the men on the outside looking in, just on the outside looking in.
All right. When we come back after this break, let's talk a little bit about the recruiting news that Jackson State is making over the weekend. It's been the movement, as I call it.
I got to laugh.
The movement. I want to know what that laugh is. We'll find out what that laugh was when we come back after the break. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Some carriers will give you just 1 measly entertainment subscription. 1 is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No. 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment. Because everyone deserves better. And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon. So now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson. Like really loves.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry. Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more. But it's so absorbent, you can use less. So it's always worth it. Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Bounty versus the old family dish towel. Drying with a fresh sheet of Bounty leaves your hands cleaner than a used dish towel that can carry and redistribute food residue. So ditch the dish towel for better hand hygiene. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Troy, you work here? I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulder Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Ever not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulder Scalp Shield, never not working.
Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music. The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless. Pick something we all like.
Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan AD here. And I want to thank you guys for watching our show. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe If you're feeling charitable and want to donate to the BCSN, you can go to mybcsn.com/support. That's myjbn.com/support. Let me make sure I get that right. myjbn.com/support. You can also donate if you're on Spotify or go to Anchor. You can also support the BCSN Pod Zone as well. You know, a cup of coffee, always works. So if you're willing to drop whatever a cup of coffee is worth, it always goes and helps out, helps keep us going, helps all of our shows that come out on the BCSN Pod Zone and the Black College Sports Network. Well, look, hey, Drew, the recruiting buzz from maybe a week or two ago when Travis Hunter, who's rated as number 2 on ESPN's top 300 football players, number 1 on 24/7, I think, a wide receiver / defensive back. He committed and flipped from Florida State to Jackson State. That caught a lot of buzz and attention. Well, Jackson State's done it again. And, to the chagrin of many. But, hey, I say it's all good and it's all part of the movement, man, because the movement is real. You can just take note of the various things that are happening on the HBCU on the portals. Alabama A&M has rebuilt an entire defense from the transfer portal. We'll wait to see what that actually looks like. Grambling State, of note, I've seen some guys. I've seen some Florida A&M recent commitments. A lot of those from the transfer portal. But the big name that just recently made his commitment to Florida A&M was wide receiver Kevin Coleman, a 4-star recruit from your hometown, Drew, of St. Louis, Missouri, St. Mary's High School, 5'11", 175. Are you familiar with this school, Drew? Are you familiar with St. Mary's High School?
It's a private school. I want to say Catholic, but don't quote me on that. If it's a Catholic school, it's a predominantly Caucasian school, but that conference, and I forget the name of the conference, has produced a few athletes. The people who go to the schools in that conference are some of the well-to-do people. But I give you one name of a person who played in that conference who wound up doing something. I give you 2 names who wound up doing something. I'll give you old school Dave first, and that name would be Larry Hughes, famed with the Sixers, Cleveland Cavaliers. He was an athlete in that conference. And I give you a current name, Ezekiel Elliott. I can't remember which high school he went to, but the high school he went to was a part of that conference. So, and actually, I'll give you a third name. Your ex-roommate, the school that he went to, CBC, was a member of that conference also. Yes, Christian Brothers College.
Yeah.
High school,
okay. So Kevin Coleman was participating in the All-American Bowl, which is in San Antonio, Texas. It's one of the 2 alongside the Under Armour All-American game, one of the two high school major bowls. And of course, a lot of times during the game or during half times or in between quarters or during breaks, they'll have these announcements where, the players will be with their family. They'll have a host of caps. You know the drill. It's very similar to what you might see at the school. So, of course, with some fellow caps up there from schools like USC, Miami, Florida State. And then on the left side, there was this red hat with a J on it. And of course, to the chagrin of a lot of people, I think there was one particular post that we talked about. Once they saw the red J hat, it was just like, oh man, we know where this young man's going. And yes, indeed, that young man said, I'm taking my talents, which, by the way, has that phrase been played? I mean, see, if LeBron James has done nothing, he's given us, I'm taking my talents to play. I mean, he's given us that. If he
Take
gives
my
us
talents
nothing
to
more,
X.
right? I'm taking my talents to X, forever
No,
immortalized.
he's giving. And then he tried to buy Taco Tuesday. He tried to patent Taco Tuesday or copyright Taco Tuesday.
So mad at him for that. Anyway, but yes, the greatest phrase LeBron James has ever uttered. I'm taking my talents to X. Well, Kevin Coleman said he's taking his talents to play for prime time. And with that, he proceeded to put on the red J hat and join. By the way, very interesting point that he is friends with Travis Hunter. And he did explain that their relationship played a role in him choosing Jackson State. This is quoting Mr. Coleman. Travis Hunter is one of my best friends. When he made that move, I've been wanting to make that move. When he made that move, I couldn't leave him alone. I feel like he's the best DB and I'm the best receiver. I want that relationship to stay tight. I want us to grow together. I want us to compete every day against each other. Quote, Coach Prime, I believe in him and trust him. I believe he's going to get me where I want to go. Also, I believe in myself. I feel like you can go anywhere and compete. Feel like one day everybody going, anyway, I'm quoting here, so if it doesn't sound like all the English is there, I'm quoting. I'm reading and quoting, and I'm just I can't get it out of my mouth right. I feel like one day everybody's going to see kids can go anywhere and compete and make it anywhere. I trust that prime time is going to develop, and trust he's going to put the right people in the room to develop me. I feel like I can do it there. Well, Drew, your thoughts on another big landing, the second top 100 player that Jackson State has.
Top 50, if I remember correctly.
Well, ESPN has him as like 58. So on the ESPN 300, I'd say he's in the top. How about top 60?
Okay, I'll give you that.
Top 100, top 60. How do you want to go? Anyway, it's a big time move for Jackson State. What are your thoughts on
We're splitting hairs at this point.
We are.
First, let me put my FAMU hat on. As a FAMU Rattler, yeah, I got to put my FAMU hat on. As a FAMU Rattler, I hate the fact that he just signed with Jackson State instead of signing with the highest of 7 years in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, we got that out the way. Let me take my FAMU hat off and let me get back to the HBCU hat. As an HBCU sports fan and podcaster, I love it, man. And it's funny watching these posts out here about why is he going where a place where he is no coaching, no facilities, no blah, 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 blah. You name it, Jackson State don't have it, according to the people that don't look like us.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sign up to play football at the collegiate level, you've got to give 3 years. Why not, first of all, why not go to a place where you're going to enjoy those 3 years? You've got to be somewhere for 3 years, be it 3 places for 1 year each or 1 place for 3 years. Why not go someplace you're going to enjoy the time away from the football field? That's number one. Find a place you're going to enjoy the culture. Number 2, coaching. I find that one hard to swallow. The fact that he's not going to get the coaching at Jackson State. You've got a person who was a 2-way player, got the best defensive back, not arguably the best defensive back in NFL history as far as a cover corner. He used to go in practice against not 1, but 2 of the top receivers in the league when he was with Dallas and went up against Michael Irvin, and for his stay in San Francisco up against Jerry Rice. So you don't think he studied them when he was competing against them in practice and in games? So The man has proven that he's surrounded himself with talent. If you don't think the coaching that he has is worth anything, Jackson State would have went 3-0 while he was taking care of his personal situation with the with his surgery. So obviously he's got some coaches who know what the hell they're doing. Whereas Jackson State doesn't go 3-0. It's not the prime time show. Prime apparently is playing that CEO role good, because what happens when the CEO is away? Can the company run without the CEO? Yes, it did. And talk about making a splash. Now you've got two. One or two things is getting ready to happen. You're going to see others come to Jackson State, or others going to go say, the heck with that. I want to go and take that down, which is going to put them at a place like a Florida A&M, like a Grambling, like a Prairie View, like a Alcorn, like a Valley. Have you seen the recruiting classes at the rest of the schools in the SWAC, Brian? Forget Jackson State's recruiting class. Have you seen the recruiting classes at the other 11 institutions in the SWAC, where at least 6 of those other 11? Have you seen those classes? These classes is nothing to sneeze at. So when Jackson State winds up with one of the top recruiting classes, not in HBCU, but in football, period, then people are going to be looking. And it's all part of a plan. The visibility, the light. What is more outside the University of Alabama and the University of Georgia? Can you name a hotter program than Jackson State right now in college football?
I'm going to be a little biased, and I'm going to say, in terms of, you're talking about in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting, just everything. For the last year, can you name another program outside? Because Alabama's Alabama. Alabama, as long as Nick Saban is Alabama, Alabama's always going to be the hottest football program out there, as long as Nick Saban is on that sideline.
Well, look, I would argue, and there's a graphic that Roy,
and that goes to my point right there. Look at that. Of that top 10, 7 are, if I count that right, 7 of them are in the SWAC. The whole top 5, yes, and the entire top 5.
Yeah, 6 of the top 7 are SWAC.
7
of the top 10. 7 of the 10 are SWAC. Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting graphic. We'll have to break that down on a later date, or kind of keep tabulating that, because one of the things that's going to be coming up, recruiting visits are happening. And it's, the effect of 2022 between the transfer portal guys, significant signings, but also what you're going to start to get now, the official visits are going to start happening also for the class of 2023. For example, Florida A&M has the #1 ranked running back recruit in the class of 2023 scheduled to do an official visit. Now he's from Florida. His name is Richard Young. He's going to be taking a trip to Florida A&M, an official visit. And so I guess when my only point that I'll make about how great it is that this movement is happening, the next stage is happening also right beside it, and that's the combine schedule. We just saw that Marquise Bell received an official invite to the NFL's combine that is in Indianapolis, not the HBCU combine, which is part of the Senior Bowl in Mobile. But look, that's great. I don't mean to take away from that, but again, you do also have the quote unquote main the NFL combine, which will be in Indianapolis. I believe that's in March. I had that written down somewhere, but I think that's in late February, early March. So Marquise Bell. I think there's only a handful of guys. We'll talk more about that on our next show, and just some of the names that are popping up on that. But what happens in this next phase? is the validation for the recruits. You know, you're hoping that Marquise Bell and some of these other guys do get recruited early on day 2, if not surprise and end up on day 1. You know, but the total number will matter, and that's how we'll be analyzing and reviewing when it's all said and done. I want to make a couple of notes as we close out, Drew. You ended the first hour recognizing some legends that have left. I want to take mention of a couple of notes, a couple of passings that happened right at the end of the beginning of the year. I know we're only 9 or 10 days into the year, but I know we missed talking about them in the last show. So right on the last day of 2021, North Carolina Central legend Sam Jones, Celtic legend Sam Jones, had passed away. He was a member not only of the North Carolina Central and CIAA Hall of Fame, but he was a part of the NBA's 25th, 50th, and 75th anniversary team. So, I mean, of course, you would assume that once you made the 25th, you're kind of already part of the 50 and part of the 75.
And what they do, they just add on additional from 25. They added another 25 to make the 50, and from 50 to 75, they added another 25 for that era.
Exactly. Yeah. Red Auerbach drafted Jones in the first round of the 1957 draft, 8th overall, despite never seeing him play. Jones went on to average 17.7 points, just under 5 rebounds in 12 years with the Celtics, leading the team in scoring 5 times, including the 1963 champions, who had 8 Hall of Famers on the roster. In the playoffs, developed the nickname Mr. Clutch. In the playoffs, he averaged 18.9 per game. He retired in 1969 at the age of 36. He was the only player in Celtics history to score more than 50 points in a game when he retired. Became known as Mr. Clutch after a series of game winners and buzzer beaters to clinch the 1962 Eastern Conference Finals. And so I just felt like we had to make mention of the HBCU legend, the North Carolina Central legend, CIAA legend, Celtic legend, Sam Jones, who had passed away on December 31st. And then on January 1st, the MEAC mourned the loss of former commissioner Ken Free, who was the first full-time commissioner of the MEAC, taking over in 1978. This quote from Dr. Dennis Thomas: Ken Free was a consequential figure, not just in the MEAC, but in all of college athletics, from securing Division I status for the conference's member institutions to serving on the Division I men's basketball selection committee. To tell the history of the MEAC without speaking of Ken Free would be a glaring omission. We mourn the passing and send our condolences and prayers to the Free family. He was the first full commissioner. He took over in 1978. He was instrumental in the conference's member institutions receiving Division I status from the NCAA, which occurred in 1980. In 87, he became the first African-American to be named to the NCAA Division I men's basketball selection committee. He's a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and he served as the commissioner until June of 1996. He was inducted into the MEAC Hall of Fame in 1999. So I just wanted to mention that, Drew, because we did not get to on the previous couple of shows. A few other things that we left off, but I'm sure we'll make mention of at a later date on another show coming up. So, all right, Drew, any last words before we jump out of here?
Yeah, I want to go back to this recruiting thing. We talk about, we know football is the be all for everything HBCU sports, but it's not hard to imagine 5 African American basketball players getting together and creating some type of Fab Five at one of our HBCU universities and being competitive, because it only takes 5 in basketball versus you've got to put together. You need 22 in football. So I could see it happening, especially if you have a one and done mentality. Why not spend that 1 year getting all this culture that you have at an HBCU? And anyone who stepped on the campus of an HBCU, you know what I mean when I say culture. So let's step up our game, our donations, and NIL possibilities, because that's what it's going to take to get these kids to come to our HBCUs so that we can create our own version of a Fab Five on somebody's HBCU campus.
Interesting points that you bring up, Drew. We'll talk about it a little more in depth. I'm still looking for NIL ads. Tag me if you've seen collegiate NIL ads. I want to see them. Are we at that point where we can start to look for them, or when will we start to see them? I'm just curious. I want to see them. You can tag me on Twitter at DRB365. Find Drew on Twitter at BCSN Drew. That's going to do it for the show today. Make sure to tune in to all of our shows this week. And if you don't see us later this week, we'll be back here again next Sunday. For our producer, Roy, my partner, AD Drew, I'm Bryan Fulford. Thanks for watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. Go ahead and share us, like us, subscribe to us everywhere we are. And we thank you for watching. Good night. God bless. Peace out.
We'll holler.